volta stabile is that, forwards, backwards. Mezza volta, the pass, backwards or forwards. Tutta volta is when you move around with either foot around the other one, any degree. With that, I'll have to show you what step I want to do to remember, fendentes, true edge, mezzani, true edge from the right, false edge from the left, sottani, false edge up, and fendente, return up the same path with the sottani, or sottani, return down the same path with the fendente. Okay? So if you give me with a mezza volta moving forward, a fendente from any position you want, finishing in boar's tooth. Okay? So if you go into frontale, costa frontale, left foot lead, okay? Mezza volta, cut, fendente, boar's tooth, cut! Okay. Go back with the sottani. Cool. Now this time put power into it. Push the hips into the cut, but finish in the same position, solid. Cut! Back up to frontale. Cut! Again. Cut! Cut! Excellent. Do the same as we did earlier. Starting in boar's tooth. We're going to do a mezzani false edge with a mezza volta step. Finishing coda longa, and then we'll carry on going forwards this time. Fendente, finishing in boar's tooth again. Okay? So, ready at boar's tooth. Mezzani with a false edge, back edge. Cut! Being coda longa. Fendente, cut! Cool. Now moving backwards. Put power into it, we're making contact there in the centre, focus on the point, moving backwards, mezzani, cut! Fendente, moving backwards, cut! Excellent. Okay. Right, start looking at the posture. If you want to, you don't have to stand in the light. Okay. Does anybody know what that guard's called? Yep. What's it called, please? Si. Excellent. This is porta di ferro, or gate or door of iron, and it's Fiore titles it. With the false edge pointing skyward, he titles it pulsatina, which means to beat. It's a beating blow, which means much like this one that we were doing with the single-handed sword, yeah, where we were beating off and then passing around. This does similar things. Whack over there, like that. It can beat with sottani. It can beat straight over the fendente, and it can even thrust as well. So we'll see what Fiore says about porta. He says, here begins the two-handed sword guards. And there are 12 guards. We're going to go through these 12. The first one is tutta porta di ferro, which means full iron door. Later we'll see there's also a porta di ferro mezzana, which means half iron door, that's full iron door, that's half iron door. Which stays in great strength. It's a pulsatina guard, so it beats. And it is good for weighting for every hand weapon, long and short. And if he has a good sword, then he does not care about too much length. In other words, Fiore advises us that porta di ferro mezzana is better with a longer sword. For whatever reason, we can discuss that later. This one, he says you don't need a particularly long sword, probably because you're going to use across his sword. So you're going to be able to open up a longer weapon with that. And if he has a good sword, then he does not care about much length. It passes with a cover, or a cross, and goes to close contact. So in other words, like I was saying, you open up a longer weapon and pass into that using the your straight of the footwork. So it's a good opening thing for beating. It changes the points, we'll discuss that later, and puts hers in. That's a technique called exchanging the points. Also, it strikes back the points to the ground, and it always goes on with a step to every strike it does with the kite. Again, that covers what I've just described. And it does a great defence and causes troubles to all the opponents. So, Dave, what I want you to practice with this guard is, first of all, if Dave gives me a cut to that shoulder, yeah, I'll snap, open him up, yeah, at which point I can cut straight back, down, and into the iron door. Then I want him to give me a thrust, which point I'll step out and exchange points like that. That's exchanging the points. So what I've done there, if you do it slowly, is his point comes in, I step slightly off to the side, crossing it and keeping my point in line with his face. Be very careful doing this technique because without fencing off the thing. So if you do it again. Also if you do a fendente to that shoulder, down from Mexani false edge to the head. Okay? So the three I want you to practice are fendente to this shoulder, which goes flat, flat. A thrust, which goes two. And then a fendente to that shoulder, which goes back. You can do a fendente or a false edge Mexani. Okay?
Another thing that Bart asked me was, is that with the false edge or the true edge? I don't think it matters because Fury doesn't say. And in fact, the only different result it has, if just slowly, if I do it with the false edge, it results in a true edge cut back to him. If I do it with the true edge, it results in a false edge cut to him. There's no big difference. Another thing you can practice is with the one with the point, is rather than just exchanging it, you can also force his point to the ground. At which point, of course, you can close it and jump straight out if you want to. And that's Fury calls that breaking the points, and we'll look at that later. This is something Fury tends to keep the back end of the sword for exchanging the points quite central to his body. He doesn't do so much the German flu out like that. He tends to, for some reason, he tends to keep it more central. Obviously it started off in the middle, and then when the Germans adopted the system, they moved it.
Okay. One thing that makes it a bit hard for us to appreciate in this sort of training environment is that iron door is supposed to be done forcefully. So these effects are quite powerful. We can't really train doing that at the moment because we really don't have protection. But I'm fairly sure that because it's a concertina, it's a beating drum, that also includes countercultural reversing as it's done. So, for example, if Dave lays the one in here, very, very slowly, as I come up here, I can beat it down very slowly if I want, or if I space it right, I can also lay it into him and the sword at the same time and still get it down, and probably hitting him with the head of the post. If it comes to the other side, it's the same thing. As I lay a pendente down, I can both take the sword and his head at the same time. Or, again, I can also go whack onto his arms with a traverse, hitting the head and the arm, stop his sword's movement because it's straight across both his arms. And against the thrust, I was getting you to exchange points, but I think because this is a concertina, also a big one is actually doing that exchange with quite a lot of power. So you might whack him in the head at the same time as making the point. So it literally goes whack, bang across there, and then. So it's really, if you can lay it across the arms, or the sword and the head at the same time, then you could do it. But we can't really practice that. If you'd like, you could practice that doing it like we're doing it, very slowly, and just practice traversing across those two steps onto the person's arms, rather than onto the actual, sword itself. It's just a difference in distance. Okay? Master is Postidana Lavisata, which means host of the woman on the right. Which is essentially that. Looking under the arm. There's different versions of Postidana. There's that, there's that, and there's one which we'll come to later, which is that. Okay? Postidana does similar things. It's another positiva posta like iron door. So we'll do the same drills just from a different position. Okay? But it also says, unlike any of the other posta, it says it can deal with all 7 attacks. So we'll try and do this. And also is it says it sets offline with the lead foot, like we were doing before with the single-handed sword, except we're facing the other way around. And so whichever way is away from the blow, and it passes through with the rear foot. The weight is very much on the rear leg, and that enables very quick movement of the lead foot. It's quite, until you get used to it, it's quite important.
While you're on the subject of footwork, I think it's that guard. There are some places where the feet are actually pointing the opposite direction.
Yeah.
They're looking this way. Are
Yeah.
you going to cover that at some point?
Well, in fact, the left one
Yeah.
is like
Okay.
that. It's quite. But I think there's different types of Postidana, because there's another Postidana that he just calls Postidana, and there's another one called Postidana La Soprano, the high. That sometimes they're facing forward, sometimes they're facing backwards. So I don't know. We haven't got to a stage yet where we quite understand why sometimes you're facing forward, sometimes backwards.
Lined up, maybe.
Yeah, but you know why? Why does he wind up sometimes and not? I guess it's against thrust. You maybe
you don't need to wind up so much. You want a quicker response and edge around forward before you use the again. Right. Okay, very slowly. The same thing as before. So I'm going to step off there, stepping around. Whack. Yep. Against this one, it's going to step off the other way, stepping through. Whack. Yep. Against the Mezzani on there. Yep. Whack. Remember, keep the hilt low, point high, point at face level, so you're crossing. This side of the full edge. Again, moving away with that foot passing through, back, and then against the Sakani from that side. Yeah. So around goes whack. And against the other side. Stepping again on the side. Against the thrust, it says it's an exchange point, it's just the same as the other one. Actually, in this one, I believe you probably set that. Because he says in a later hospital level you set that from the thrust. So I think from here, he might, because this then becomes the fourth foot, because it changes orientation. So I think he sets out there, thrust one to go to point, and exchanges. So, if you practice, remember always move away from the cut and pass through, away from the cut and pass around against all of those 6 cuts, and then carefully exchanging the point.
And when you pass through, and not to hit from
Sorry?
when you pass through,
It's roughly 5 distance. Lay the blade across, cut from part of the blade across the blade, and take a step back. This is called, this comes right on the shoulder. The 2 ways that Fury either keeps his arm very close into him here and looks over his shoulder, or he looks under the arm. And to me, I think that's because you want to see the entirety of the height of your opponent. You want to be able to see their feet, the middle of their body, where the movement of their hips or even their wrists might be coming from. And if you do that, you can obscure part of the vision of your opponent. So you want to get it completely out of the way, there or there. I think that's the reason why he does that, to get the arm out of the way. And also because it's more wound up, more power as well. Yeah. It's the same thing, except you're moving this foot out of line, so you're moving to the left and cutting through, or you're moving over there and going around. With the point pointing forward. Yeah, and leaning away from your opponent. But another thing to remember is you can do this with your hands. Yes. This then becomes the lead foot because I'm moving that way. So if you that's it. You don't have to speed this
On the left is because you're supposed to hold it with your right hand up on the sword. And that is fairly easy to do and natural to do because this is close across your body. It's easy to get out the end of your sword. If you try and do it on your right shoulder, it's bloody impossible. Because your right hand is too near to your right arm, whereas on this side it can be close to your body because you've got the extension of your right arm across your body. So that's easy enough to do, at least for me anyway. Whereas that, I can't get my point around my enemy unless I really have to call myself. Wait, shows the body. Huh? Leaning back, yeah.
So it's basically.
Doesn't actually fit too tight, does it?
We've looked at the two postuli donna on each side. The next one is postuli finestra, which is position of the window, close to the window. It's a master of covering and hindering, and it's full of intrigue and deception. So, some exercises from that. Some of you might know as ox. Postuli finestra. If Dave gives me a findente to that side of my head, yeah, I'll raise the point up, yeah, pass under it, cut back. Let the force of his blow push yours around. So do that again. Okay, smack. Yeah. If he gives me on this side, just simply unwind, smack. Yeah. If he gives me a mezzani, I can cover like that. That's called mezza spada, covering in the middle of the sword. And Fiore seems to show it done with the flat. Some other slide. But he doesn't talk anything about that. If you do something to this side, again, it's a flat cover like that. It's a tiny to here, whack. And it's a tiny to the other side, whack. Against a thrust in the middle. What else can you do? Also, practice the finestra on the other side. It does the same things if you do it up to that thing up there. Cut. Upside. Cut. Suddenly. Cut. Cut. You can do it on the blade or the person, whichever you prefer. So just practice those two. It's all counter-cutting, but also practice if you just throw me two mezzani, for example. Yeah. Take the blade. Yeah. 100. Yeah. Take the blade. And then if you want. Yeah. So like that. You boom, knock it as it comes in. It's a little beat. And then on the other side, rather than passing under, I can do that as well. Use the leverage, bat it with the flat. Okay. This one, if you do it gently there. As if you allow it to do, if you pass through there, so he was going to hit my head there. So that's his line. What I've done is I've moved off to the side. Yeah? So I've left my sword on my head. Let that push around. If he looks like he's going to come up with the satani, whack! You take, rather than taking his head, Fury actually says several times,